What's up, guys? It's Johnny Candido of Candido Training.
HQ.
And today's video is on what's more effective for glute training, the sumo or conventional deadlift. And since I have been wondering it and don't have a real clear in-depth answer, I got some help from a friend of mine and who is an expert in this specifically, who's an expert in glute training, and that's Bret Contreras. And some of you may already know him because he's known as the glute guy, and he's just a very smart and intelligent guy about lifting and training in general. He actually has, for example, a review on strength and conditioning research. This is someone who's actually really looking in depth into the scientific and objective information about training. So without further ado, I'll let Bret answer the question of which is more effective for glute training, the sumo deadlift or conventional deadlift.
We're going to look at the evidence and analyze the biomechanics and then come up with a verdict. So we don't have any training studies or any longitudinal research to look at, but there are 4 good quality mechanistic papers. These are acute studies that can help us answer this question. So 3 of these papers are by researcher named Escamilla and one's done by Mike McGuigan. And we're going to use these to help us answer the question of what is better for glute growth, sumo or conventional deadlifts. So let's analyze the biomechanics. So we're going to look at EMG, which looks at muscle activation. We're going to look at range of motion and joint range of motion. We're going to look at torque requirements, stance width, and bar distance. Okay, so first question is, are there any EMG studies? EMG puts electrodes on your muscles and you perform the lifts, and it sees which exercise leads to higher levels of activation. Well, there's one study looking at that, and what it showed was the sumo deadlift elicited 37% of MVC, the conventional deadlift elicited 35% of MVC, so that's really not a big deal. So based on EMG, sumo has a very slight advantage, but not much. The next question is range of motion. One study showed that with the conventional, you have 19% more range of motion compared to the sumo deadlift because the wide stance, it shortens the distance. Now what about torque requirements? Hip torque is turning force. How much force do you have to provide to turn the joint? So with the hips, the sumo deadlift, the hips are actually closer to the bar. You have less moments, less hip extension joint moments because the hips are closer to the bar. So 2 different studies showed that when you do conventional, your hips stick out further and therefore more torque is required. And also 3 different studies have looked at hip angles. And the hip is actually more flexed in a conventional as measured by the hip angle compared to the sumo deadlift where you're more upright. So in terms of total range of motion and bar distance, in terms of joint range of motion, and in terms of hip extension torque, the conventional deadlift has the advantage. However, because the feet are flared so much, or the stance width is wider, it's over twice as wide as the conventional deadlift, and the feet are flared out, this puts the glutes in an advantageous position. So the sumo deadlift has an advantage in that with a wider stance and foot flare, you can activate the glutes to a higher degree. So looking at the mechanistic research, we can see that really it's a wash. The sumo deadlift has advantages in one way, the conventional deadlift has advantages in another way, and this is why with muscle activation you don't see much of a difference. I would suggest that you do both of them, and it may depend on the style of the lifter. For example, with sumo, lifters tend to be very upright. You use the glutes really, really hard at the bottom, fire them up, and then the lockout tends to be pretty easy. And with some conventional deadlifters, they can stay very upright and kind of squat the weight up. But other guys like me, I'm a round backer, and so I will round. And this means that the end range, my glutes have to be very strong to push my hips forward so I can pull my shoulders back. So it may depend on the style of the lifter. Some guys might feel more from the conventional, some people might feel more from the sumo. It all depends. So my advice is to just do them both. Thanks for watching.
Alright guys, I would like to thank Bret for answering that question, and I know it's a good collaboration when even I was excited to see the answer and learn some new information as well. So I'll include links in the description to his work, and I highly encourage you to check it out, not just because he has a bunch of great information, but also because when it comes to changing, for example, this industry, I see a lot of people complain about the supplement industry and all these guys who spread gimmicks. Well, not only do we need to complain about that, but we also have to support the guys who are about real information, about looking at the research, for example, and basically summarizing that for the mainstream population. And Bret's somebody who I actually used as a resource before I even started my YouTube channel. So that's it, guys. Make sure to like the video, support the channel, subscribe if you haven't already, check out Bret's work, and thanks for watching, guys. Peace!